Okay, so now we're going to get into the second part of Photoshop, and we're going to be discussing the tools. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into Google Images and search for um, the yellow duck. So we'll just go to Images. And you can do this as well and follow along. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hold down my Control key, and I'm going to go copy image. And then I'm going to go back to Photoshop, and what's happened now, and I'll go to my drop down menu file, or I'm sorry, yeah, file, and I'm going to go to new. And what's going to happen is because our duck is on the clipboard, it automatically creates the size and resolution for whatever that was, and I'm going to just call it duck, and I'm going to hit OK. And then I go to Edit, and I'm going to paste. And I'm just going to hit OK. And there we have our yellow duck. Now I can zoom in using keyboard shortcut Command plus. Go ahead and try that once you get it in. Okay. Command minus will zoom me out. And this is just a little bit easier than having to go to the magnifying glass, which is fine. You know, I can zoom in and zoom out as well here, but using the keyboard shortcuts, I don't even have to. I can just go back and forth using my keyboard shortcuts, and it's much quicker, more convenient. So anyways, what we're going to first talk about are selection tools. And this first tool, very important tool, is our Move tool. And one thing you'll see about the tools here is that some of the tools have little arrows on the lower right hand side, and that basically means that there are lists of extra options for the tool. Okay, so you see you have the rectangle, elliptical, single row marquee, and single column marquee. These actually select single pixels. We have the lasso tool, polygonal lasso tool, magnetic. And then in this area, oops, in this tool we have the quick selection tool and the magic wand tool. And we have the crop tool, and that also gives us a perspective, and slice tools, which are used for web-based applications. And then the final tool is the eyedropper tool. And this also includes some counts and ruler tools and color sampler tools. So the three tools that are very similar, where we can actually make selections on our object, would be the marquee tool, the lasso tool, and the quick selection and wand tool. These will allow me to go in and just make regular selections. Now you notice it's allowing me to make additional selections, and the reason for that is I'm actually on the Add To command in the options panel. If I were to do just the single selection, which it will default to, every time I go to make a new selection, it's only going to give me a single selection. Again, add to selection, I can add to my selection. And then there's a subtract from selection tool, and I can actually go in there and subtract from a selection. And then you have your intersecting selection tool as well. Now, once I make the selections, and I don't want it, now up in the select drop down menu I can deselect, I can invert my selections, etc. Or for deselect, the hotkey is Command D, and you'll use that quite a bit. Right now I'm going to use Command D and just get rid of these selections. Okay, so the Move tool itself is anytime I have to move something on my document, I need to be on the Move tool. The eyedropper tool, on the other hand, allows me to pick a color and add it to my foreground color box down here. So for example, if I go on the eyedropper tool and click here on the beak, you'll notice it turns red. If I click on the yellow part of the duck, this foreground color turns yellow. So very useful when you're wanting to match colors and get certain colors for your particular project. The other thing I want you to understand or to realize too is that there are quick keys for all the tools. So for example, the marquee tool is an M, and you can see these letters right next to the right of the name of the tool where you see the L in parentheses. So to get the lasso tool, I would use an L. To get the quick selection tool, I would use a W, and so on and so forth. So these are other things to remember about the tool panel. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to make a selection, single selection, and then I'm going to go to the Move tool and move it. Okay, now you see that I have moved the object, moved a piece of the object. I'm going to go Command Z, which is undo. And I'm going to go to the elliptical marquee tool and actually add to my selection. Now I can also add to the selection if I'm on the single selection tool by going Shift, holding down the Shift key, and add selections like that. I can also take away by either going up here to subtract from selection or using my Option key, and you notice that the little minus sign comes out. Now if I go to the Shift, the plus sign comes up. So, and the other thing too that you should be aware of is I can use multiple tools to add to selections as well. Okay. So again, Shift to add to selection, Option to take away, or you can go up to the Options bar and make your selection there. And then if I take the Move tool, again, now I've added all to that selection. Command Z to bring back. Okay, so I'm going to go Command D for deselect, and I'm going to go show you the crop tool. And the crop tool, of course, gives you rule of thirds options. You can do grids, golden ratio, etc. It will default. You can actually straighten your object as well, and you can also tell it what size you want the crop to be. And basically what happens though is when you make your crop, you can move the image around, and when you can either commit it by going up to the check mark, or what I like to do is just do a quick double click with your mouse, and there you go, you have the crop tool, or you have your image cropped. Okay, so these are the various selection tools. Now what I'm going to do is show you some of the marquee tools, pretty obvious. The lasso tool on one hand works, this is just a freehand tool, okay, and I can go around and make a selection like so. The other lasso tool in here is a polygonal lasso tool, and this allows me to make straight lines. Now the key is you have to go back to the point where you started, and you'll notice that little circle showing up when I get to the start point, and that will make my connection for me. Okay. And then the final tool is what we call the magnetic lasso tool. And this tool will actually work like a magnet and move around. If you have a high contrast image, you can go ahead and make the selection. This is very useful in photographs, especially if you don't have a lot of high contrast as well, because you can actually manipulate this magnetic lasso as well. The thing is I like to set my frequency lower and have it move a little bit slower. I usually set this down to 25. You can give it a percentage of what type of contrast you want it to have as well. And so again, just like the polygonal lasso tool, make sure you remember where you start. And then I like to move slowly, and you notice how it's working just like a magnet. Okay? And I just go around And if you move slower, it's especially if you have a contrasty subject, it will allow you to make a pretty good selection. Then again, go back to where you started and the little circle shows up and you've made your selection. Okay, so those are the 3 tools there. And we'll discuss them more later when we get into other projects as well. The next tool here is the quick selection tool, and this can be very useful too if you have subjects that have good contrast. And basically what it does is it actually defaults to the Add To mode, and I just go ahead and bring it down and go ahead and make my selection. Now the thing is you want to be careful about the size of your brush. Now I am increasing the size of the brush right now for this selection tool, and I'm doing it by clicking on the bracket keys located next to the letter P on my keyboard. So this is another nice technique. Or I can go and change the size there as well. The thing is when you're making the selection, you want your brush size to be smaller than in the area that you are selecting, and also you don't want to start at the edge. You want to start inside and just kind of work inside and let it try to find the edges on its own. Okay, then we have another tool called the Magic Wand tool. The Magic Wand tool, again, this has a tolerance from 15 it defaults to, you can bring it down lower, and it goes all the way up to 200. And for example, if I go to 15, what it's doing is it's looking for the most similar colors that I have. Now it's going to default to the single mode, and again you can just set it to the Add To mode, or you can hold down your Shift key, but it's not doing a great job selecting because I got a lot of different tones in here. Watch what happens when I go up to 100. Okay, definitely has selected much more of my image. And I can go all the way, like I said, I can go up to 200. Oh, that's 20, so we'll go ahead and go 200. So now you know what 20 does. And there's 200. Much less work, okay? This works fine because I have that white background, but when you get to photos and you've got very similar colors in the area, this tool can be rather cumbersome. Okay, so we've got our selections. Now the other thing too is like I said, we can do inverse. We can invert our selections as well, okay? And up here as well in the select drop-down menu, I can also select a specific color range. I can refine the edge, etc. What I would like to, and we'll show you in a different photo, I'm going to show you the feathering technique with selection tools, and then we'll finish up with this presentation. Okay, so now I brought in another photo of a lake here, and the resolution's a little bit low, but that's okay. What we're going to do is I'm going to show you how you can make a selection and move it. And so in Window, I can actually arrange it so that I can see my documents at the same time. And here's that menu we have, the drop-down menu, the duck, etc. And I can go ahead and work. And remember, I inverted this, so I'm going to go back and inverse it so that just the duck is selected. And I'm going to actually get on my Move tool, and I'm going to take this selection and click on my mouse, hold it down, drag and drop. And you can see that we have the duck right here. And what I can do is go to Free Transform, hold down my Shift key, and resize the duck. And we'll get more into that in a little bit. But I just wanted to show you what the Move tool is useful for, as well as going to another document and the selection tools. So in the next lesson, we will get into the colorization tools.